Hello and welcome to Crossroads. It's an opportunity for you and I to get together courtesy of your local cable access television station and to talk about workforce development. Where are the jobs? What are the skills necessary to obtain these positions? Where do you fit into the big picture? Well, today is a special show. We're going to start off with a segment where we're talking to a young professional who has found a way to turn her talent into a money-making operation with the sky as the limit. And for the second part of today's program, we'll be investigating the word alimony. Now, if you're getting it, you know it. If you're not getting it and you're paying it, you also know that. Let's investigate what that means. But first of all, let's turn to a young woman who has made a career of being a strategic thinker and putting her talents to good use. Candace, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi.
I need to tell people, first of all, that you are the founder of Field Logistics and also the managing director for both Field Logistics and the Donovan Consulting Group. Now, how did you come about acquiring those positions?
I actually started in a completely different career. I started in advertising after a degree in art school. So I didn't go to a regular liberal arts college. I kind of went with my passion, which was art, and was able to turn that into a career where I guess a lot of parents get a little nervous about that. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to make money if you're going to be, an artist? But it worked out. So as I was in an ad agency, they were doing research, conducting research inside of the ad agency. And I found that to be so much more interesting than what I was doing that I ended up leaving that job and going to the other side, basically, and received some additional training and was able to actually start a career in that. And I started out at Donovan Consulting Group in a lower position, basically absorbing as much information as I could from the team members there.
You've mentioned a lot of interesting things. Training, keeping your eyes open for an opening, getting ready, and apparently networking didn't hurt you either, did it?
No. That networking is critical. Relationships, whether they're for a new job or your existing job, are the cornerstone and the foundation to actually making you a success at what you're doing. Because your relationships are what keep your day-to-day business going, and they also lay the foundation for future opportunities, when and if you need them.
Well, hopefully there are a lot of young women out there today who are watching this and seeing you as a success story. How important are just the very basics, the soft skills, being able to communicate well with people in terms, because you're working in a professional employment and job market, presentation, looks, and everything else. How important would that be for young people who are looking to get into a highly critical but narrow field where customer contact and confidence it's essential?
Presentation is, I would say, 90% of the job, because especially in my position, you're in front of consumers and clients, being in market research, because I become the voice of the consumer to the client, and so I have to have face time with both people. So I need to be approachable yet presentable and very versatile, because you don't ever want to come across to the consumer as somebody who is kind of above them.
Or out of touch.
Exactly. And so you just have to, and knowing the vernacular is very, very important, and studying on your own time, making sure you understand who you're talking to and what the topic is about. Having this job isn't just using your soft skills all the time. It requires that you do homework on your own to make sure that you're constantly updating your skill set.
Let's talk a little bit about the contrast between market research and political polling. See, I think there is a vast difference there. Do you see it that way?
Well, you and I like to get back to politics.
Market research does require, because you have something specific and there are a lot of options for the consumer to choose from.
Right.
So if you don't get the information right to whoever's trying to market the product, they lose market share or don't get any.
Right. Well, market research comes in two forms. It comes before a product actually goes to market, and it's also sometimes used after a product's already on the market. It can be a litmus test for its success or changes that could be made. So in that situation, you can apply these skills to two different areas, and so that allows you to kind of get into pharmaceutical research versus just product research, where you're doing a lot of testing long before it ever reaches the consumer.
Now, you mentioned that you need to do your homework. You need to be very up to speed with the products that you have to do the research about. That also comes into giving you an opportunity to use your other creative talents. Now, we're going to see a slide in just a moment or two of a very interesting piece of musical equipment that you've brought in. The slide is of a guitar.
Oh, it's actually a violin.
Violin?
Yes, and if you could imagine a piece of cardboard that is about the size of 4 refrigerators, all one piece, right? That's what I started with. And then by folding it and cutting it and creating it, this violin that you're looking at is actually made of one piece of cardboard without any glue or tape. And it actually folds up and looks pretty much like a violin and holds itself together. And my work is a lot like that piece in the fact that when you get a project or anything that you're doing, you have to look at the big picture and figure out all the pieces before you can put the whole thing together. And that's where planning comes in, and being a strategic thinker and doing planning and logistics requires that much time.
Well, with that in mind, there are always barriers for people who are trying to do things, and I think one of the next slide that we're about to look at does speak to some of those type of barriers.
Yes. This slide actually is just a snippet of a project that I did that was an art installation. So it included actually building signage. There's one sign in that photo that looks like a construction worker, and these were actually set up in the streets of Providence as you approached a construction site. And then there was actually yellow caution tape that we had custom made that said harassment zone, pass at own risk. And then this book was then put together, and if you look at the cover of this book, it's actually made of roofing tiles, so it's very tactile. And this was kind of my last big project before I actually went out and started my career, and it says so much about me trying to break the barriers of the stereotypes of women and kind of being my own person and standing up to all of the challenges that I'm facing.
Well, this next slide certainly fits into beating the stereotypical challenge, because if you just pay attention to the figure here, you miss the opportunity to check the brain.
That is true. That is true.
Well, we have about a minute to go. I think your profession is very interesting. For people who would like to contact you, would you mind if someone contacted you to say, I have some business and I would like to get in touch with you? How can I do that?
Yeah, but you can go to my website, which is field-logistics.com, and there's a contact link, and all that information is there.
Can you talk about anything about the projects that you're working on now? Or we'll have to make it another show, because I've just seen we're out of time.
Okay.
Candace, thank you so much for being a guest
Thank
here
you.
on Crossroads. And it's very important, as she was just able to share with us, it's education, it's networking, it's forward thinking, and most of all, it's strategic thinking. Crossroads continues momentarily.
The Massachusetts One-Stop Career Centers, connecting workers and employers.
For career services and resources, I can help with that.
If it's about computers or internet job searches, those are my classes and they're free.
Before you go on your job interview, I can help you prepare to do your best.
For veterans, it's One Stop for services.
For complete business services for employers, that's our team.
Continuing this special edition of Crossroads, we'd like to talk about the word alimony, or the reality of alimony. What is it? How did it get started? Who does it affect? Are the laws fair? Should they be changed, or is everything working just right, depending on which state you're in? Well, we're in Massachusetts, and for some of you, you know that spells something different. Let's start off our show today by introducing, first of all, Attorney Tim Taylor. Tim, welcome to Crossroads.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. Deborah Scanlon, you were kind enough to come out and join us this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Steve Hittner, a lot of people know your face and your name, but they don't know what you do off camera.
Yes.
So welcome to the show. And Jeannie Hittner, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
When we talk about the word alimony, what does it seem to conjure up in your mind? If you've never gone through the experience, stay with us today as we investigate what does that word mean. How do you get there? How do you get alimony? In terms of alimony, Tim, I want to pose two questions to you. First of all, is it cheaper to keep her? And then, what is alimony?
That's an interesting way of putting it, Maurice. Each family situation is unique, of course, and for some, the relationship appears to be impossible. They may or may not, alimony may or may not be awarded in each case, of course, but it can be exceedingly expensive, partially financially, of course, particularly if, as in the case in Massachusetts, where it tends to be for the life of both the supported party and the supporting party, it can be extremely debilitating for both parties, both the payor and the recipient. It tends to create lifelong dependency. It tends to reduce independence and the self-confidence of being self-sufficient.
So for the average person who's listening to this show, when you say alimony, alimony is an award given by a judge to a person in a divorce case.
Right.
Okay. What's fair about it and what's not fair about it? I suppose that's a question if you have someone in your family that has gone through the experience. Jeannie Hittner, I'd like to ask you, what has been your personal experience along this thing called alimony?
Okay, I was married in New York State and divorced in New York State. I had a long-term marriage, and when my husband and I split up and I went to the lawyer, he said to me, "You need to go out and get yourself a job." And I go, "Why?" I said, "You know, I've been home with my children." I said, I don't have anything that I can do." He says, "Well, you're not going to get alimony in this state. You will get maintenance for a certain amount of years, and then you're going to be on your own. And if you want health insurance, you need to find yourself a job." Now I come to this state, you know, like 8 years later, and I meet Steve, my present husband. I get married, and the judge here tells me to go out and get a second job. That now I have to help support his ex-wife, a person that I do not know, that I was never married to. And it's just a tragedy. It's just totally unfair to women like myself and Deb, that our incomes have to go towards a second of their first wife.
I'd like for you to share with us your feelings when this judge that you don't know told you that you have to get a second job to contribute money for alimony to a person that you may not have even ever met. What went through your mind?
Well, first of all, I could hardly believe it. I mean, my rights, I don't have any rights in this state as a second wife. Well, that's why we're working very hard to have a law put into the legislature to end this.
You mentioned second wives, and there is such a thing, I guess, as a second wives club, if I could call it that. Deborah Scanlon, you have another unique story to tell. But first of all, help us better understand alimony in terms of how do you see it. Does it affect people who are in the workforce, want to go into the workforce? And then your story.
The tragedy of the current alimony practices in Massachusetts is that it actually discourages women from seeking self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency for a party after a divorce is a horrendous emotional event. And then the courts tell a woman that you are incapable of anything but being dependent on your ex-husband. No self-esteem comes out of that. And the other side of that sword is now the ex-husband is never allowed to move on to his life. And it's financially devastating to have to pay for another human being for the rest of your life, for the rest of their life, when they're absolutely capable of taking care of themselves, but Massachusetts tells them no.
You know what I find interesting in this whole process, Steve Hittner, is that when we're looking at this thing called alimony, just from what I'm piecing together here, it would appear that if you get an alimony award, you've hit the lottery for life.
That's exactly right. You've hit it for life. People have been told it's your right to never have to work again. And it's interesting to note, I believe in the statistics, that most divorces are begun by the wife or by the person who ends up collecting the alimony. And that's someone can just move to, I mean, if you win a lottery ticket, move to Massachusetts and divorce your spouse, and you've won. You've won hands. You'll never have to work again, and your spouse will have to support you for the rest of his or her life.
You know, I want to go back to Tim, Attorney Taylor. It just seems like, okay, even with a jail sentence, you know, there is some end point. But now, from what I'm hearing in this conversation here today, it's like it's life. It's
in many cases, it is life. Secondly, as Jeannie and Deb and Steve have alluded to, it can be an enormous financial windfall for the supported party if the supporting party, paying the alimony, happens years later to find the love of his or her life, who happens to have significant assets or income. The ex-spouse, the recipient of alimony, can share in that. What we are doing with the bill that we're promoting is trying to dramatically change the law in Massachusetts, so this form of financial windfall will no longer be possible, and that alimony practice in Massachusetts will serve what we believe is the only legitimate purpose of alimony, which is to ensure for some ex-spouses who are not capable of being self-sufficient in the short term, a reasonable portion of the pre-divorce lifestyle.
I don't get the impression that you're saying that alimony should not be given under any circumstances. What are you really saying? That you're looking for a reasonable period and then an expiration period?
Right, for those, and except for those who are supported, who really are not capable of any gainful employment. It's also extremely damaging, we believe, for ex-spouses who have children, who are trying to raise their children in circumstances that clearly aren't very favorable, to have this financial connection between the parents forever is just not, it's not fair first to the most innocent victims of divorce, the children, and it's not fair to either the supporting party or the supported party.
You know, one of the interesting things as we sit here and we talk about people of means and alimony, we're going to take a break now, but during this break, what I'd like for you all to think about, we're talking about people who may have some means. There are others in our society where that old expression comes in, my baby daddy, that kind of language, or where the male is incapable of paying alimony because he's in prison, has a record, can't get a job, et cetera, et cetera. You have to wonder what happens in those situations. I know there's something out there called family services that's supposed to take care of that, but the effects of alimony, when meted out to me by judges that don't seem to have a clue of what real life is really about, deserves further conversation. We will do that momentarily.
Hi, I'm firefighter Mark. I just got back from fighting a fire that could have been prevented. Here's an easy and simple way to protect you and your family from a fire. Change your batteries in your smoke detector. When replacing the batteries in your smoke detector, make sure that you have fresh, new batteries. When testing your smoke detector, you want to make sure that you push the test button. And don't forget about carbon monoxide in your home. There are two types of detectors to protect yourself from carbon monoxide. This one is battery operated and needs to be mounted on your wall. This one needs to be plugged into your wall outlet. So remember, be smart, be aware, be fire safe.
Alimony. There was a song by an artist called Lattimore, probably about 40, 45 years ago, and it was entitled, It's Cheaper to Keep Her. Well, that may have been a prophetic statement back then, but Steve, you guys are trying to do something with the law currently. What's the progress? What's the reception like on Beacon Hill?
The reception has been fabulous. Tim Taylor wrote the legislation for us. It's House Bill 1785. And when it was introduced this year, it was introduced with the co-sponsorship of 72 legislators. Now these legislators, you need to understand, are both men and women, both Republicans and Democrats, both Senate and House, got together and felt that our bill is written so well and needs change. And we've talked to many legislators who say, when we approach them with what we're looking to do, they say, well, alimony, there's no alimony in Massachusetts, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years. And then we let them read the horror stories and they say, oh my God, this must be fixed. And that happens to be the reaction of everyone we talk to when they see the horror stories and how it's been abused.
What took you so long to get here?
Well, it's taken quite a bit of time. I spent 14 years in court. And to finally get kind of an end to what I'm doing, but I'll be back in court in 3 years, I just know it. After I was turned down for a modification when my business was failing, I mean, nothing was credible. My taxes weren't credible, my accountant wasn't credible, my financial reports were incredible, my credit report was incredible, that I wasn't making the money I was making in 2000. And so I went online to see if anybody else had a situation like this, and we started I met with Deb and another lady, Kathy Ortiz, and we began mass alimony reform, and the first people who came to us, ironically, were women.
So what's happening?
One of the very important aspects of the bill that everybody should understand, and that I'm passionate about as a woman who was divorced years ago with 3 small children, is that there are plenty of safeguards for women in this bill. Nobody is going to be divorced and then left destitute. There's a 12-year window where there's plenty of time to retrain. You can get a doctorate degree in 12 years. And we often hear, well, what happens to the woman in her mid-50s when 30-year marriage, no training? Well, if it's simple, you do the math. If you're 55 and you have 12 years of alimony, that brings you well into Social Security. In Massachusetts, quite often 401ks and retirement plans are split 50-50. So there are safe gaps. It's a law that's meant to protect all parties.
I'd like to say that when in the beginning, when alimony was awarded for life, people didn't live long than 30, 40 years old. Now people are living into their 90s. We're talking about one heck of an obligation here.
Plus, in Massachusetts, if the marriage is a certain length, there's a division of marital assets, 50-50. Most of those assets will generate income. Not earned income, but unearned income. So, secondly, the bill includes a provision that mandates an increase in the amount of alimony, automatic increase, if the cost of living goes up, and if the payer's income has gone up enough to pay that increase.
Okay, but now you just mentioned that whole cutoff thing right here. What happens when the person who is responsible for paying, what happens when their ability to generate that kind of court-mandated alimony doesn't exist anymore, can't afford it? What happens?
Then, and in essence, that's it. Then both ex-spouses will have to suffer.
Are people jailed for inability to pay?
Oh, absolutely. The typical sentence in Massachusetts is 90 days.
So you can't pay, so they give you 90
That's
days
right.
to prove you can't pay, and then you've lost maybe the job that you did have, or
Right.
or your business. So now when you come out and you can't pay, Steve Hittner, now what?
Well, the judge told me, when I said to the judge, I'm running out of credit cards to pay this alimony. My business has failed. The economy is killing me. And the judge said, well, in essence, when you run out of credit cards, I'll put you in jail.
Maurice, the state has a legitimate interest in trying to ferret out for those who are obligated to pay alimony. Are you not paying it because you choose not to?
Right.
One of the benefits of the bill, by having a limit to the term of alimony, it gives the payer of alimony the reality that at some point it's going to end. So it's beneficial to maintain your level of income. Another bad aspect of the current practice in Massachusetts is if the payer's income goes up, the recipient, the supported party, gets a piece of it. So there's no incentive to increase your income. And if you believe that you're going to have to pay alimony for the rest of your earning years, which for some even goes beyond retirement age now, there are so many incentives to try to hide income to not pay it, rather than saying it's going to end on this date. And in fact, the bill also provides for a reduction for the last few years so as to reduce the impact of alimony ending.
Okay. What happens if the payer moves out of state?
obligation remains. Massachusetts has jurisdiction wherever the payor
So there
goes.
is reciprocity.
Oh, yeah.
So when you moved here from New York and found the man that you wanted to marry, spend the rest of your life with and be happy, did you have a hint?
We had no idea. We had no idea what was going to happen, because we probably wouldn't have never gotten married.
No. We thought my ex would get a certain amount of money for a certain amount of years, and then that would be the end of it. I mean, you have many divorces occur because people are fighting over financial issues, and then these same two people get tied together for life over worse financial
There's
issues.
something Machiavellian about this whole thing, you know,
It's
like
amazing,
this is like a Mondo Bizarro cartoon in the Superman comics.
Well, 100...
Go ahead.
To make it even further, you can't even understand the mind thought. My husband and I had a very solid prenuptial. And when we went into court, he lost his job, we went into court, and the prenuptial didn't matter. The judge said the prenuptial is between you and your husband. It does not come into the equation
For the new wife.
for the new wife. So my husband
You
wasn't
can't make this up,
entitled.
right?
No.
You cannot make this up.
My husband
It's
was
so
not
sad.
entitled to know my income, which he didn't, but his first wife was.
Alimony continues to serve the two purposes, which we don't consider to be legitimate anymore, that it served 100 years ago or 200 or more years ago, which is, in essence, the ex-wife is incapable of working, incapable of self-sufficiency, which of course is no longer true. Secondly, that it's a form of indirect punishment. And in an age when, I don't know, 95 or some % of all the divorces filed in Massachusetts are no fault, where the
Yes.
court cannot consider the fault of either party, its use as some indirect form of punishment, we feel, is just not appropriate.
I'm sitting here amused because I have to ask this question. So now this state has just said gay marriage is in.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to this alimony thing now?
This has caused a lot of problems because
Indeed.
a lot of the relationships were long-term. And although they've only been married for a year or two, they've had a long-term relationship. So now do they get alimony for life? Or do they get short-term alimony? This is up to the courts to deal with. And what we've learned is every judge we spoke to would like to see some kind of structure.
Okay, we have less than a minute to go. Is there a way for people who are interested approaching this type of situation or in it or just looking for somebody else to talk to? Is there a way to share the knowledge that you guys have as an organization?
MassAlimonyReform.org.
MassAlimonyReform.org. Okay.
Is on our website. Just call us and just email, and you'll find a wealth of information about the laws, our new law, and we'll help you.
We have to wrap it up here. We want to thank you very much for being with us. This is not an unhappy topic. It's just part of the community service that's provided by your local cable access station. For the last 5 years, I've been very proud to be able to host this particular show and others here at this cable access station. This is my last show for now, so I'll have to sign off and say it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for letting me into your homes. Good night.